Hi everyone, my name is Devin Kanaz. I'm the publisher of Travel Week. At Travel Week, we are very dedicated to getting you the information you need. And today you need information on Kentucky. What a wonderful state. Before I introduce our honored guest today, first, a few housekeeping items. We have a great prize, um, a Kentucky-inspired gift pack that we're going to give away at the end. So make sure you stay until the end. Those agents will be eligible for the prize. And also, if you have any questions that come up through the webinar, put your questions in the Q&A box, and then at the end, I will go through them and get to them. So we are going to be learning about bourbon and horses and all kinds of fun stuff today. So I would like to introduce Commissioner Mike Manjet. Hello, welcome to Travel Week webinars.
Thank you for having me, and great job on the pronunciation.
Okay, tell us about Kentucky. What do travel agents need to know about sending Canadians there?
Well, the first thing you know is we are the greatest state in the United States. So we have everything you need. No, I do want to thank you all for taking the time to learn more about the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. Yes, we are one of 5 commonwealths in the United States, believe it or not. Doesn't really make a difference whether you're a commonwealth or not, but we're one of 5, so we like to tout that. We really want to give you an overview today of how easy it is to get here, what we have to offer, walk you through some of our regions. You see on this map here, some people say, I don't even know where Kentucky is. We are in the heart of the United States. We are bisected by Interstate 75 and Interstate 65 going north-south through Kentucky. We consider ourselves the northernmost southern state, as a matter of fact, and kind of the gateway to the south. Chanel, next slide, please. And you can see here, we're very easy to get to from a fly drive standpoint. The times you see here on the left are actually drive times from Chicago, and all of these are to Louisville, our largest city, which is on the Ohio River, kind of right in the north central part of the state. But as you see, if you're flying into or driving down from Chicago, it's about 5 hours to Louisville. Nashville is about 2 3/4. But to get to other parts of the state, Nashville to Bowling Green is only about 45 minutes. We border 7 states, which only Tennessee borders more. So very easy for fly drive itineraries. Next, please. Additionally, a lot of folks say, well, do you have seasons? Yes, we have 4 very distinct seasons, which is one of the reasons bourbon, we're the best place on earth to make bourbon. And we can get into why later. But you see our average high temperatures in the summer, about 87 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 Celsius. In the fall, the average high is about 72. We're going through a little bit of a cold snap here for us. The high today is in the low 20s. But by Wednesday next week, it's expected to be up around 50 degrees again. We have year-round participation or attractions such as our bourbon distilleries, our museums. We have a fantastic state park system throughout the Commonwealth, and of course, our historical and cultural sites. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is give you a real broad overview of these 4 regions of the state. And then when I come and finish, Chanel McGee, our Director of International Sales and Marketing, will give you some more specific immersive experiences that you can see in each of these. So we'll start off, if you'll flip it, Chanel. We'll start off with the Louisville region that we talked about, Louisville, Lexington, and Northern Kentucky. These 3 areas are our 3 largest urban areas, really where a lot of our iconic images are. You can see on the screen here. In Louisville, you have Churchill Downs, home to the Kentucky Derby, the longest continuously held sporting event in the United States, which celebrated its 150th consecutive running last year. You have the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. Baseball fans are very familiar with Louisville Slugger. As a matter of fact, we did an event up in Toronto last summer and partnered with Slugger. You can visit in downtown Louisville. You can't miss it. There's about a 75-foot tall baseball bat leaning against the building, so it stands out pretty easily. But some great tours in there. You can have a bat with your name on it. That might be great gifts for some of your best clients as well. Also in Louisville is the Muhammad Ali Center. A lot of folks don't realize that Muhammad Ali, um, one of probably the greatest, as he called himself, but the greatest boxing champion and probably one of the top human rights advocates in the world, was born in Louisville, Kentucky. And his museum and Ali's the Ali Center, yes, it covers his boxing career, but it really talks about his civil rights advocacy and impact worldwide. It really is a very moving experience. Also there, just as one example of probably 7 in downtown Louisville, is the Evan Williams Bourbon Experience, a great hands-on experience where you can go in and do a self-guided tour of the history of bourbon, the history of Evan Williams label, sample, have a cocktail, etc. Moving east to Lexington, our second largest city. Again, horse racing. We have horse racing, first of all, about 360 days a year at different tracks. None of our tracks run at the same time. Churchill Downs is our largest and has the most dates. Keeneland runs in April and October. I enjoy all of our tracks, but if I was pushed to pick a favorite, it would be Keeneland. It's very traditional. It's much smaller. It's a great experience. You can literally get on the rail, and a lot of the hot walkers and safety riders will bring their horses up to you, and you can pet them or take photos with them. But Keeneland's awesome. It runs in April and October of every year. The Kentucky Horse Park, it's a 1,200-acre park in Lexington. It was the first park of its kind when it opened in 1978 in the world, and still one of only few that is dedicated to all breeds of horse. There's a campground there. There's a great museum, the Museum of the Horse. They have a number of events that go on throughout the year, including a bluegrass music festival, and is usually the host site for many Olympic-level world-class equestrian events that are open to the public. Old Friends is actually a retirement home for thoroughbred horses. Only in Kentucky will you see a retirement home for thoroughbred horses. And it's a wonderful experience. These horses who, once their racing career is over, once their breeding career is over, now get to live their life just kind of visiting with friends and visitors and running through their paddocks. It's a wonderful experience. Downtown Lexington new is their distillery district, which again has the James E. Pepper Distillery, a number of restaurants and other attractions like axe throwing, etc. Very close to downtown Lexington. They are also working on connecting it through a park called Town Branch Park. And then Bluegrass Bites is a walking tour, walking food tour in Lexington. Chanel is a big fan of the walking food tours. Wherever we go, she does one. And it is one of the better ones around. Moving to the north, when we say northern Kentucky, there are 3 counties in northern Kentucky right on the Ohio River that market themselves collectively. Interstate 75 comes right through the middle of this area, directly across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. So you have the Roebling Suspension Bridge is an iconic image of northern Kentucky. Why is that important? It's actually a mini version and almost a draft that John Roebling did of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. You can walk across this. I've done it many times. I was born in Covington, actually, so I'm very familiar with the Roebling Bridge. And it's just very iconic. You have the Cincinnati skyline behind it. I love Cincinnati. I'm a big fan of their sports teams, but the best experience when visiting Cincinnati is to do it in northern Kentucky. They also have the Newport Gangster Tour right there. And Newport is literally just a mile or 2 down the river, very walkable into Cincinnati. In the late 50s and 1960s, Newport, Kentucky was actually the second largest illegal gambling book in the United States behind Las Vegas. And a lot of stars who did not want to go to Vegas but wanted to gamble would come to Newport, like Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe and the Rat Pack, etc. So they have a really entertaining Newport Gangster Tour up there to take. And then B&B riverboats. If you're familiar with the stern wheel riverboats that have such a, and you see the image here, you can take these for group tours. You can take them for dinner cruises, all types of activities. And this is kind of a visual snapshot of the region. As I said, kind of an iconic images of Kentucky with to the left, there's our Louisville Slugger bat. I wasn't lying about how high it is. You see B&B riverboats, that's the Roebling Bridge it's going under. And then you see our really iconic image of Kentucky with the rolling Central Kentucky horse farms. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Visit Horse Country, which now allows you to actually get on and tour our horse farms. I grew up in Kentucky, in this area, and just up until about 10 years ago, you really couldn't get on the farms unless you knew a friend to get you on. Now there are organized tours. As a matter of fact, Coolmore Ashford Stud is home to two not only Triple Crown winners that you can see if they're in town, Justify, and I just went blank on the second one. His bourbon bottle sitting over here. American Pharaoh, that's it. Sorry. So anyway, these are the iconic images that you'll see in this region. And from an accommodation standpoint, you see on the left side of the screen, the large, more than life-size image of David, downtown Louisville, outside of 21C Museum, which has been recognized as one of the best hotels in the world. Some new properties in Lexington, in kind of the top center there is the Manchester Hotel that's only been open for about 18 months, but a very cool rooftop dining and rooftop bar. The Omni in downtown Louisville as well. So some really high-end luxury accommodations for your travelers and your customers. Moving on to the southeastern part of the state, this is really Appalachia. And Daniel Boone, the quote here by Daniel Boone, if you're familiar with Daniel Boone, he was an explorer, a frontiersman in the 1700s. And he is credited as opening the Cumberland Gap, which really opened the westward migration for the United States. And when he first viewed Kentucky from the mountains in the Cumberland Gap, he said, heaven must be a Kentucky kind of place. What can you see here? Obviously, the Appalachian culture. There's an Appalachian Artisan Center in Hindman, Kentucky, a very small town. If you're familiar with country music, Sturgill Simpson, who is from Kentucky, is also born in Hindman. The Red River Gorge in the Daniel Boone National Forest is a geological wonderland. It's one of the best rock climbing sites in the eastern United States. We get people not just from the U.S. but worldwide who come in to rock climb in the Red River Gorge. The hiking in the Daniel Boone National Forest is just second to none. The gorge and the forest are home to the second most sandstone arches in the United States, only behind Utah. The biggest difference is out in Utah, you can see them because they don't have any trees. Here, they're covered by trees and you have to go searching for them, but just some incredible images, which we'll show you in a second. The image you see here is actually one of our state parks. That's Cumberland Falls State Park. Cumberland Falls has been called the Niagara of the South and is one of only two places in the Western Hemisphere that when the conditions are right, which means a full moon and a clear sky, you can actually see a moonbow, which is a nighttime rainbow off the mist from the falls. You can also, through some outfitters and tours and guide services there, you can actually canoe right up to the falls. You can kayak, you can stand up paddleboard. And I've taken my family, my kids, and friends for long weekends down to Cumberland Falls multiple times. And then the Rail Explorer as well. The Rail Explorer, as you see here on the left side of the screen, are using some abandoned rail lines to really give you a very up close and personal view of the scenery. The middle shot you see here is the Gorge Underground. And yes, that's exactly what it looks like. You are kayaking in a cave underground. And very, very, very cool. They have the boats, as you see, are lighted, but also are clear underneath. There's aquatic life in there that you can see, and about 50 degrees year round. So if you do come in the summer and it's 85 degrees and you want to cool off, go to the Gorge Underground. And then on the right-hand side, you see there, I believe that's Natural Bridge, a family on the top of the Natural Bridge, one of those sandstone arches, also in one of our state parks, which is Natural Bridge State Park, about a 45-minute drive outside of Lexington. Next slide, Chanel. And this area has some of our coolest accommodations. You see on the left-hand side of the screen one of the geodesic domes that are up in the trees of Daniel Boone National Forest. And as you can see, it's kind of luxurious. And if you ever really want to get away from it all and put your cell phones down, or your customers want to get away with their families, There are a number of domes and tree houses that are now available for rent. Upper right-hand corner, you see, yes, those are life-size or larger than life bourbon barrel cabins in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, just a few miles from where I'm sitting today, that you can rent as sort of like an Airbnb. And then, of course, we have campsites and RV sites around the state. If you have customers who are looking for an RV trip, Kentucky is an awesome place to do. It's easy to get around, a lot of places for them to stop and hook up for the night, use as a hub and spoke if they have another vehicle they're towing, if they're doing the Bourbon Trail or anything like that. A lot of very, very, very cool and unique accommodations there. In the central part of the state, is we're kind of moving a little bit more west, but in the central part of the state, as we'll call it, we like to say, it's adventure and wilderness, and it's a necessity. A lot of folks don't realize that we are home to Mammoth Cave National Park. It's one of the oldest tourism attractions in the United States because it's documented back in 1803 that they were doing tours of the cave. It is the longest mapped cave system in the world, with over 400 miles of mapped cave systems. And they are still finding more. And no, you do not have to go in with a helmet and knee pads and spelunk, as they call it, and wedge through cracks. You can do that if you want. That is not for me. But there's actually, as you see the family here in the photo on the right, plenty of area. In fact, there are chambers in there that are so large that they, in the 20s and 30s, and even as recent as last year, have hosted musical concerts in there. Last year featured Yo-Yo Ma, the world-class cellist. And it's really, really, really cool event, and really, to me, one of the wonders of the world from nature. It is a World Heritage Site as well. A lot of folks don't realize that Abraham Lincoln, America's greatest president, in my opinion, was born here in Kentucky in Hodgenville, and his birthplace is a National Historic Park that you can visit. The big South Fork National River and Recreation Area, again, just a wonderland for outdoor enthusiasts. And then I also mentioned the Cumberland Gap National Historic Park, which truly was the gateway to the West for the United States. There were a lot of firsts that happened in Kentucky because of the Cumberland Gap. The first university west of the Allegheny Mountains, the first bourbon bar, the oldest bourbon bar in the world, is in Bardstown, Kentucky. So it's kind of fun to see that as you travel through the state. Next slide, please. And again, visually, you see on the left, that's one of the entrances down into the cave, down into Mammoth Cave. What I didn't mention, in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Bowling Green, about 45 minutes north of Nashville, as I said, by car. Since 1983, every Corvette in the world has been built in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Just across the street from the plant in the upper right-hand corner here is the National Corvette Museum, which whether you're a car enthusiast, if you're a car enthusiast, it's a must. If you're not, it's really still interesting. They have at least one example, one model of every Corvette ever made. Some of you may recall about a little more than 10 years ago, there was a cave-in, because it's not far from Mammoth Cave and it's a very cave-rich area. There was a cave-in in the yellow dome you see there of the museum, and they lost about 8 cars. They salvaged most of those, but they've kept a couple on display to see the impact. One of the things that a lot of folks don't know about is that center photo of the Corvette on a track. The museum across the interstate from it owns the National Motorsports Park, where you can, if you're brave enough, or your clients can, rent a Corvette and drive it on a world-class test track. I have done that. I will tell you, it is one of the coolest things I have ever done anywhere in the world. You start thinking that you're a race car driver, you realize very quickly you're not, if you're smart. But if you don't feel like driving one, you can actually pay to have a professional driver take you around on that track. And then again, some other scenery you see there in one of the caves and hiking in the area. From the western part of the state, we like to talk about our hidden gems down here. The Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum in Owensboro, Kentucky. Bluegrass Museum started in Kentucky. It's called Bluegrass because the grandfather of bluegrass music was a gentleman named Bill Monroe. who was born in Rosine, Rosine, Kentucky, not too far from Owensboro. And his band was very popular in the 30s, 1930s on the Grand Ole Opry. And his band, they're all from Kentucky, and they were called the Bluegrass Boys because Kentucky is known as the Bluegrass State. And because of that, the entire genre of music is now known as bluegrass. Very cool interactive museum in Owensboro. You see the photos there. Those instruments hanging on the wall, if you go in and you have a hankering, as we like to say, and you want to pick that up and do some picking and grinning, they welcome that. In the same area, we also call it the houseboat capital of the world. We have massive lakes in Kentucky. We actually have more moving water than any state in the U.S., with the exception of Alaska. That's our rivers, our lakes, et cetera. And houseboating was really created in Somerset, Kentucky, building them and everything else. You can see some of these can hold up to 12, 15 people or more, 6 to 8 bedrooms. I've done this as well, and it's just a great long weekend. You can rent these from as little as 4 days up to a week or more. And then Paducah, Kentucky, which is another one of our river towns, is a UNESCO creative city, one of only 9 UNESCO creative cities in the United States. Really, also home, if you go to the next slide, Chanel, also home to the International Quilt Museum, which you see on the right. The first time when the Quilt Museum opened years ago, and I was told there was a quilt museum, my thoughts were the quilt that my grandmother made, and et cetera. These are the furthest thing you could possibly be from those. You see some of these images. These are absolute works of art. And Paducah every April also holds the National Quilt Festival, which draws thousands of people in. It's very experiential. They actually have classes on how to make quilts with expert instructors. The center shot there, as you see, that's also, as I said, it's a river town. That's the Paducah murals, riverfront murals, and it tells the history of Paducah and the state in those murals. And then again, some other images here on the water that you can see. It's just so much fun. It's such a popular activity here in Kentucky. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chanel to talk about some of the immersive things that we can do. And, you know, our immersive experiences, we really like to cater to a variety of interest and travel styles. They're hands-on activities. They provide entertainment. They also build a much deeper connection to the destination and the experience. And I think we all agree that that's something travelers increasingly seek. So Chanel, take it away.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mike Mangent. Again, my name is Chanel McGee, and I oversee the international sales for Kentucky, including Canada. I did want to mention that we do have a direct flight in from Canada. We actually are about to launch another as well. So from Toronto into CVG, which is our airport located in Northern Kentucky, we have a direct flight. And then in March, we will actually be launching another direct flight into CVG from Montreal. I mentioned that, but we're also a fantastic destination for individuals that are headed south or are looking to add on an experience with multiple states. So whether you're coming to Kentucky to stay for a couple of days or just passing through and staying for a night, we'd love to add one of these immersive experiences to your trip. So I'm going to go through and kind of give you a bit of a highlight of add-on experiences around some of the locations that Mike has mentioned, that your guests can really get a hands-on experience that is memorable and something that they can take back with them. And then at the end of this, if there's any questions about a specific immersive experience that you would like, please feel free to email me. I also have a couple of pricings that I'll just give you a highlight on, just so you understand kind of what these pricing structures look like. For family experiences, again, this will be broken up into different segments of family, romance, bourbon culture, and horse culture as well. But specifically for families across Kentucky, there are some incredible experiences. Some of the ones that you can see are obviously our tour experiences at our national parks. At Shaker Village, this floral picture that you see, you can actually go out and forage different florals, do different cooking experiences, create different craft experiences like brooms and basket weaving, and then gardening experiences. The Rail Explorer, which Mike mentioned previously, that is about a $65 ticket, but we really like to include this for families because it is motorized. So not only for young kids, but also for an older generation, they have the ability to still experience this kind of soft adventure and see the countryside of Kentucky in a very unique way. Mike also mentioned that we have an incredible waterway system. You can actually learn how to snorkel and other experiences in Kentucky with these waterway systems. One last thing that I want to bring up in this area, some of you might have been looking at this slide and saw the word kangaroo. Yes, we do have Kentucky Down Under Adventures in Kentucky. This experience is really geared towards families, but showcases a multitude of, I think, very unique animals that you never would have guessed would have been here in Kentucky. I will say I saw a kangaroo for the first time here, and the size of this thing is massive. So no, you don't have to go all the way to Australia, just a quick trip to Kentucky, and you too can have that experience. A couple of snapshots and added kind of dialogue around some of the experience that Mike has mentioned before. When we say the Slugger Museum, we do not just mean a museum for individuals to learn about baseball or learn about the baseball bat. It is actually the location of where they create and manufacture all these bats as well. So when he says that you can get one designed for yourself, what he means is if there is an athlete on a team that uses a slugger bat, you can actually get his bat made. So if you're a fan of someone who plays for the Cincinnati Reds or any of these teams, you can go in and say, I want this individual's bat. They customize it from weight, they customize it from color, and all of these different things, and allow you to actually ship that bat home with you. Individuals each, when you do one of these tours, get a little mini slugger bat as a nice little add-on experience. These tours, depending on age, will run you anywhere from $15 to $25, and then upwards with some of their very customized experiences that they have that allow you to touch and play with Babe Ruth's bat or enter the batting cages and that sort of thing. So really, really fun experience. The Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame, as mentioned by Mike, also has really fun classes for individuals. So yes, if you're an experienced musician, you do have the ability to walk on and actually just pick an instrument up off the wall and start jamming. But also you can take classes there, and these classes run from youth all the way to adult experiences. So highly recommended for families. For adventure seekers in Kentucky, Mike mentioned our incredible outdoor landscape. But what can you actually do outside of hiking and maybe rock climbing? Our ATV experiences in these areas are top notch, and the views that you will get while riding these ATVs are truly incredible. There's a multitude of different experiences with this as well. The cost of these experiences also run vary to what you're trying to do. The typical price, though, is anywhere between $200 and $400, depending if you want a driver or if you will be driving it yourself, and it lasts for about 4 to 5 hours, depending on your experience. These are located throughout Kentucky, especially in our Appalachian area. We mentioned Black Mountain Off-Road Adventures, but the Red River Gorge also has these experiences. I like to mention that although we love to be able to get out and explore and hike these experiences, some of the other offerings that we have are a bit more in the lighter adventure experiences, like your cave exploring and horseback riding that you can experience. We also say that anything that you can do above ground, we could do below ground. So Mike mentioned our kayaking, and maybe you saw this picture of the boating experience in Ghost River. We also have biking experiences in our cave system. And if you've ever seen Ninja Warrior show, we have an adventure course also in our cave system at Louisville Mega Cavern. So when I say anything you can do above ground, we could do below ground, we truly do mean that. From boating to hiking, kayaking, paddleboarding, ATVing, and it just runs the gamut. I also want to mention that we actually have lifts to some of our hiking experiences, specifically Red River Gorge. So individuals who want the vistas but might not be able to experience the whole hike, or maybe a portion of your family would love to join you at the top, we do have lifts that are seasonal to get individuals up there, so you can have a mixed audience with these. For our cultural experiences, Mike mentioned that we do have the Quilt Museum in Paducah, and he also mentioned that you can take classes there. These classes are held throughout the year. So yes, for individuals who want to add on to an experience, all the way from kids doing hand knitting to individuals and adults doing quilts on sewing machines. These classes run from anywhere from $25 to $45, depending on your level of activity. Cooking is such a big experience and truly, I believe, showcases a culture. That is why I love doing foodie walking tours so much. But let's add in an immersive experience with it. In the image below, you see my old Kentucky home. One of my favorite activities there is the biscuit tour. Now, I'm not going to lie, they also do a cocktail class that I think is top notch, but their biscuit tour is very unique. They do 3 different biscuits, and they kind of explore different culinary aspects of Kentucky using curated ham, different jams, but you make these biscuits from scratch all the way to finish, and then you get a nice little treat at the end. So one of those add-ons that I think are really, really great for individuals who are looking to stretch their legs, maybe walk around a national park for a little bit, and then grab a nice little light bite before hitting the road or doing another add-on experience. So definitely check out my old Kentucky home and the culinary biscuit tour. As I mentioned, there are all these quilt classes and artisan classes throughout Kentucky that you have the ability to join, not only in Paducah, but Berea, Kentucky. They have connected with their college and allow you to do basket weaving and different experiences right there at the Artisan Center in Berea. Mike mentioned the Corvette experience. That experience runs right around $450 for individuals who want to take out the new EV Stingray, I believe it's called. As you can see, I'm not a car person, but I will say I did get to do the ride-along experience, and it is top notch. I screamed the whole time, but the video was so worth it. No, you don't have the ability to ride an actual derby horse or a race horse in Kentucky. But one of my favorite experiences that I think are really unique to what we have to offer is our betology experiences. So horse racing is Kentucky culture, but do you really know how to bet? You know, so the betologist will actually take you and walk you through his top picks, but also showcase what the actual book says and how to place a bet here in Kentucky. If you don't know, different locations have different ways of betting. So meet with a betologist, learn about the sport, and then test your luck on the track. For immersive romantic escapes, we like to add in a variety of experiences. One, adding into the artist side of it. So right here, you see a gentleman actually blowing glass or creating an experience. And then the photo below it is actually the same location. So this is Trifecta. It is not only a glass studio, but a speakeasy/lounge. So individuals or couples can go and actually make their own rocks glasses or their own vase together. I love their couples night. You grab a cocktail you enjoy, and then you try to blow glass. And am not very good at these crafting experiences. So if you're anything like me, you need the liquid courage. This experience runs anywhere from $100 a person to individually, or as a couple, they do a discounted rate. Again, these pricing structures are a bit fluid depending on when you are going. Obviously, around Valentine's Day and those type of experiences, it's changed a little bit. Another really fun experience that I like to encourage individuals to look into is the chocolate and bourbon pairing at Evan Williams in downtown Louisville. So not only do they walk you through a bourbon tasting, they also add in a chocolate element to it. I don't know what's more romantic than chocolate and bourbon. You could do a cocktail class there. It's located in their speakeasy. So you learned about the brand, you learned about pre-prohibition, but you also get a nice little chocolate treat as well. And then last, yes, Kentucky does have a castle. So some of the experiences that they have there, obviously dinner series, cooking events, foraging events, because they have their own little farm there as well. So the Kentucky Castle is a fun place to look into for a very unique off-the-cuff experience that you would never expect here in Kentucky. The equine side of Kentucky. Yes, we have horses of all breeds. So shown here is a saddlebred. What I love about saddlebred and saddlebred culture is it truly is one of those horses that you can get up close and personal with. If you're used to thoroughbreds, you know that they're very high spirited. And although we have incredible horse farm tours that allow you to pet some of these retired horses that are a little bit much more well-mannered than right off of the track, saddlebreds are completely different. They are bred to have a very composed kind of emotional state that allow you to get up close and personal with them, whether you're a child all the way through adults. So I love doing these type of tours. This tour specifically is Kismet, located in Shelby County, and it is about $15 a person, and the tour lasts an hour. The Kentucky Horse Park also has horseback riding experiences for individuals or horse-drawn trolley rides for families who want to explore the park and learn about the different breeds. And then last is our immersive bourbon experiences. We couldn't leave you all without knowing kind of what are the hands-on experiences within the bourbon culture world. Not only do we have a You Do Bourbon experience in Evan Williams that allows you to bottle your own experience, but we also have bourbon blending classes. So in Northern Kentucky, in Louisville, and in Lexington, there are locations where you can actually create your own bourbon. So they take a couple of different bourbon barrels, and then you get to test your own recipe, your own proof levels, add water, and actually have your own takeaway bottle that you have personalized. Another really unique experience is dipping your own bottle at Maker's Mark. I think we all know about that red wax dripping off the side of the bottles. Very, very famous as you're looking on the shelf. It's very easy to identify that bottle. Why not dip it yourself and kind of curate your own experience and customize that bottle? All of these experiences are $25-ish, and then you actually purchase the bottle itself. So the You Do Bourbon experience is one price, and then the bottle that you select is another. Same with the Maker's Mark. You purchase a bottle of bourbon and then you add on the experience. Kentucky Bourbon Trail is one way to explore the bourbon trail here in Kentucky, but we do have other options for you with the Urban Bourbon Trail, which is Louisville's walkable bourbon trail, and the Beeline, which is Northern Kentucky's bourbon experience that adds foods, bars, and distilleries. And then last, I cannot not mention the image with bourbon and horses. So Barn 8 is a location right outside of Louisville that offers a restaurant at Hermitage Farm, but also does bourbon tastings right there in the horse stalls for individuals. So a very unique way to do a bourbon tasting, but hey, when you have almost 100 distilleries, you get creative. That was our overview of Kentucky that included a very brief kind of regional based description of everything Kentucky has to offer, and then a couple of options for immersive experiences for individuals as they travel through Kentucky. Located in the QR code is our international page. We'll be uploading all of our in-market international guides for individuals to download. And then also later on today, we'll be sharing a full breakdown in an Excel sheet of all these different immersive experiences, including if they're family friendly, group friendly, and then some of the pricing and direct contact for those individuals as well.
Thank you, Chanel. Thank you, Michael. That was very informative. I think everyone got a very good overview of Kentucky, and there's a lot of stuff to do there I wasn't aware of. So thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm gonna go through the questions. Larissa seems to be interested in the horses. She wants to know, one, are you aware of any of the farms that you can volunteer at? And also, can she get the list of companies that take people to the horse farms?
So there is an entity that does most of the horse farms, and they're called Horse Country. So yes, we will share that direct contact for you as well. And then for volunteer experiences, yes, but that would be a sidebar conversation that I can send it to you. We do have quite a few farms that allow individuals to get deep in and kind of volunteer with those experiences. But also we have accommodations where you can actually stay on a horse farm. And with that, if you're willing to pitch in and help out, they allow you to do that and help take care of the horses themselves. So really unique ties to both of those.
Yeah, that's perfect for all those horse crazy people out there.
If I could add too, when Larissa was asking about the companies, we have a number of companies, tour companies that will work with clients, set up both horse country tours and bourbon tours. They're expanding even into handling everything start to finish. Mint Julep Tours is probably the biggest, but there are many others, Kentucky Bourbon Boys, et cetera. And we can share that list with you as well.
And on that same note, this isn't just a one-off horse farm tour. Some of them are already curated experiences for you just to add on a guest or two. So yes, you can rent out the whole bus and just take over one tour, or just add yourself to it.
Okay, thank you for that. Annie would like you to remind her what area the caves are in.
The caves are primarily in the Mammoth Cave in particular is kind of in the south central part of the state, right along Interstate 65. That's what we consider our cave region. Although even in the northeastern part of the state, up kind of east of the northern Kentucky region are also some other caves, but primarily it's that south central region along I-65.
Now, for your extreme underground activities, such as your biking underground and your Ninja Warrior course underground, those are located in Louisville at the Mega Cavern.
Okay, we have a question from Nelson. He wants a copy of the slides. I'm assuming that's okay. We will circulate. Can you touch on mobility issues and how prepared the state is for those kind of travelers?
Sure, we're happy to do that. We have a lot of experiences that are accessible, whether that's outdoors, whether that's indoors. Mammoth Cave that I talked about is wheelchair accessible, even getting down into the caves in certain parts of it. Most of our distilleries are as well, and our horse farms. So one of my favorites actually is a place called Bernheim Arboretum and Research Forest. Imagine the island of Manhattan, about the same size, and instead of about however many million people there, that's how many trees are there. It's about 30 minutes south of Louisville, and it's very accessible. They actually have a boardwalk, if you will, that goes out over the tree canopy that is accessible. They have accessible playgrounds for children. So yes, we absolutely, and we have actually made a big push statewide with our DMO partners to let us know about what else is accessible out there. And there's quite a bit here in Kentucky.
You mentioned some of the outdoor activities as well as our waterway systems. I know that they're set up as well for fishing experiences and that is, and our distilleries. So depending on where you're going, we'd love to further that conversation and to assist in any way that we can.
Okay, we have an agent here that would like to know about like really high-end luxury. You know, if a client is very loose with the budget, like what what can they offer?
That's a great question, and I really appreciate that question. And I'll tell you, if we were having this 10 years ago, I'd have struggled to answer, and that's not the case anymore. And a lot of that is driven or has been driven through our bourbon industry. The curated experiences that you can now have at distilleries, everything from buying a barrel of bourbon personally or as a company. And I've done that process a couple of times, not bought it, but well, once I did. It's not cheap. But you wind up with anywhere from 150 to 200 bottles of bourbon. It's a great immersive experience where you're going in and tasting it. Many of them will customize the label for you. You can get etched bottles. And that's just on the bourbon side of it. But our culinary scene has really taken off. Our accommodations, you saw some of those there. You know, there's a 21C in Louisville, 21C in Lexington, the Hotel Covington in Covington in the Northern Kentucky region, the Manchester. The short answer is yes. Mint and Julep Tours that I mentioned at one point was actually offering a single barrel experience at Maker's Mark. And to get to Maker's Mark, you really want to go to Maker's Mark because it's off the beaten path is the best way to say it. It's a fantastic experience. But Mint Julep at one time was offering an experience where they would pick you up and helicopter you down to Maker's Mark to do a barrel pick and then bring you back. So again, short answer is yes, we have that. And depending on what specifically you're looking for and what part of the state, we can help you identify what those experiences would be in more detail.
And I also like to state, I think that what Kentucky brings to the table with all of our partners is what luxury gets you is exclusivity, right? So it's not only these experiences, it's these experiences at a very high level. You want to be a master distiller for a day and walk through the entire process of how to make bourbon. We have classes for that. And the experiences that you get are truly one of a kind and geared towards very small audiences or, you know, exclusivity of just your family or just your group attending it.
Yeah, it sounds like there's lots of different pieces that an agent could weave together and create a out of this world experience. Okay, I'm gonna weave together Christine and Judy's question. Can you touch on scenic drives and whether there's any spectacular gardens?
Sure. We have a ton of scenic drive itineraries posted on KentuckyTourism.com. We can certainly send those out to you as well. If you really want to do, the fall colors, as a matter of fact, I've been toying with the idea of years of running ads in New York with our fall colors and say something, just like Vermont, but with bourbon, but haven't been able to pull the trigger on that one yet. But yeah, whether you want scenic that way, whether you want historic, Old Frankfort Pike here, that goes from Lexington over here to Frankfort, it's relatively short, but it weaves through these historic horse farms. Absolutely stunning drive. But we can get that to you. So short answer is yes. Throughout the state, we have scenic drive itineraries. As far as gardens of note, quite a few. The Udell Gardens in LaGrange, Kentucky, the Bernheim Arboretum that I mentioned. In fact, through some federal funding that we had, we funded a number of projects, and one that just started were Gardens of Kentucky. So there's actually a Gardens of Kentucky trail and itinerary out there that covers many portions of the state. We're happy to share that with you.
We also have the Waterfront Botanical Gardens as well in Louisville, and some of our historic distilleries have done a really unique experience for individuals who may not be interested in bourbon, but love gardening or what it showcases. So both Buffalo Trace and Castle and Key each have curated experiences strictly for gardeners.
And I would also add Maker's Mark that I mentioned, even though it's a little off the beaten path, Maker's Mark probably has the most public art on display of anywhere in Kentucky. Indoor, outdoor, they've really invested in that. They have some Chihuly pieces, and it's really more than just the bourbon. And I say a lot of times, and you hear us talk a lot about bourbon. After all, we make 95% of all the bourbon in the world, and we make 100% of all the good bourbon, just for the record. But whether you drink it or not, whether you like bourbon or not, these tours are really more about the storytelling and the history of the brand and the families, and as you've seen them focus on, you can now eat at many of the distilleries. They have restaurants, you can have a cocktail, but it's that storytelling. And as I said, at Makers, you can even see artwork, world-class artwork.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all the questions from the agents. Chanel, do you want to maybe just run us through where the agents find the information one more time?
Of course. So we will follow up with this presentation and include a link to a live document that allows us to update all the immersive experiences, where they're located, and pricing and contact information. And then we also on our website have an international page that we will share with you all a direct link for. And then my email address for any connectivity for receptives or wholesalers, for events or additional information on attractions, hotels, and what have you.
Thank you, Chanel. Michael, okay, you get final words here. Do your best inspirational pitch. Why should Canadians come to Kentucky?
Well, first, I want to thank them for their time. I appreciate the interest. I appreciate the questions. What I would say is Kentucky is a beautiful surprise. For folks who have never been here before, when they get here, we hear it time and time again. I literally go back decades and look at the visitor research, and they say the same thing. I had no idea how pretty it was. I had no idea I could have that type of experience. And I had no idea how friendly and hospitable the people of Kentucky are. And it makes them come back. An overwhelming majority of our visitors have been here before. They come back time and time again because they may come for a business meeting, or they may come stopping on their way to Florida, or going somewhere south as a snowbird or whatever else. And they have that experience that I didn't know I could do that. I want to come back. And that's why these opportunities are so important to us. So for a very, very bad bourbon pun, I would say take a shot on Kentucky. Yes, that's bad. But if you haven't been here before, I would invite you to come in and see. We're open to fams. We're open to really spreading the word on Kentucky. And I would say you won't be disappointed, neither will your clients.
Okay, there you go, travel agents. Take a shot on Kentucky.
Don't quote me on that one. That's bad. That's bad, but don't quote me.
Headline news. Okay, Chanel, Michael, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time to let the agents know about your beautiful state and all the horses and all the bourbon. And thank you, travel agents, for spending time with us, learning about this beautiful destination. And we will see you again on another Travel Week webinar. And of course, you can check the daily news on travelweek.ca. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.